Hi, friends. Welcome back to Stay Anchored Kids. Last time, we learned about the birth of Isaac, the son God had promised to Abraham and Sarah. After years and years of waiting, God finally fulfilled his promise. You would think that everything would be easy after that, right? Well, today we're going to learn about one of the most surprising and challenging moments in Abraham's entire life. A moment that tested his faith like never before. Now Isaac was growing up, and Abraham loved his son very much. After all, Isaac wasn't just any child. He was the son God had promised. The son through whom God's great plan would continue. Then one day, God told Abraham something shocking. He said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a sacrifice on a mountain I will show you." Can you imagine how difficult that must have been to hear? Abraham knew God had promised great things through Isaac. How could God's promises come true if Isaac died? Nothing about this seemed to make sense. But Abraham had learned something over many years. He had learned that God could be trusted. So early the next morning, Abraham and Isaac began the journey. They traveled for several days until they reached the mountain God had chosen. Then Abraham and Isaac walked up the mountain together. Isaac carried the wood for the sacrifice. As they walked, Isaac noticed something. They had the wood, they had the fire, but where was the lamb? So Isaac asked his father, "Where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb." Those words would become very important. When they reached the top of the mountain, Abraham prepared the altar. And just as he was about to obey God's command, an angel of the Lord called out, "Abraham, Abraham, do not lay a hand on the boy." God had stopped him. This had been a test. God never intended for Isaac to be sacrificed. God wanted to reveal Abraham's faith and trust. Then Abraham looked up and saw something incredible. A ram was caught in a bush nearby. God had provided a substitute. Instead of Isaac dying, the ram would be offered as the sacrifice. Just as Abraham had said, God himself will provide. Now here's today's big question. Why would God test Abraham like this? God wasn't trying to trick Abraham. And God wasn't learning something he didn't already know. God knew Abraham's heart. The test revealed Abraham's faith and taught him to trust God even more deeply. Sometimes God allows difficult situations in our lives too. Not because he doesn't love us, but because challenges often help us grow stronger in our faith. Now here's the amazing part of this story. This event points forward to Jesus. Think about it. Isaac was Abraham's beloved son. Jesus is God's beloved son. Isaac carried the wood up the mountain. Jesus carried the cross. A substitute died in Isaac's place. And Jesus would one day die in our place. But there is one big difference. When it came time for Jesus to be sacrificed for the sins of the world, there was no substitute for him. Jesus willingly took our punishment so that we could be forgiven. That's why this story is so important. It's another sign pointing us towards God's rescue plan. Before we finish today, remember this truth. God can always be trusted, even when we don't understand what he is doing. Abraham didn't understand everything, but he trusted God's character, and God proved himself faithful once again. All right, friends, thanks for joining me today. Tomorrow, we're going to meet Isaac as a grown man and see how God continues his promises through the next generation. Before you go, here's today's challenge. Think about this question or ask your parents, why do you think trusting someone is easier when you've seen them be faithful before? And let's finish with a quick prayer. God, thank you for being trustworthy. Help us trust you even when life is confusing or difficult. Thank you for providing Jesus, the perfect sacrifice who took our place. Amen. See you next time, friends.